We begin the day with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, the actor turned president who also bears the title Commander-in-Chief, international lobbyist, and traveling preacher man. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has forced Zelenskyy to take on responsibilities that he could not have imagined just a few short years ago. Ukraine's armed forces are in an existential battle against Russian invaders in the east of the country. In order to equip his soldiers, Zelenskyy has spent much of the last year lobbying allies to send weapons, everything from battle tanks to fighter jets. He's expected to do more of that at the G7 summit in Japan on Sunday. We have this report.
A symbol of the catastrophic consequences of nuclear war. The Peace Memorial Park in Hiroshima, where the first atomic bomb was dropped by the US in 1945. A compelling backdrop for the start of the G7 summit in Japan. At the top of the leaders' minds was likely not only the devastation of the past, but also Vladimir Putin and his continuous reminders of Russia's nuclear capability. The G7's host, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, wants this summit to be about a commitment to a world with no nuclear weapons.
The sad reality hanging over this summit in Hiroshima is that the Ukraine war has underscored that nuclear weapons remain as relevant as ever. Not just because of Vladimir Putin's threat, but because of the history of Ukraine's own nuclear weapons, which it gave up to Russia in the 1990s, leaving this eternal question over what's happening now. Would Putin ever have invaded if Ukraine had kept those weapons?
For the second year in a row, Russia's war in Ukraine has overshadowed discussions at the G7. Leaders have announced further sanctions against Moscow, including on the trade of Russian diamonds, and have promised further unwavering support to Kyiv. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is expected to join them at the summit on Sunday. Very important things will be decided there. The presence of our president is absolutely essential to defend our interests. On the sidelines of the G7 summit, Zelenskyy is also expected to meet Narendra Modi, part of an effort to convince the Indian Prime Minister to shift his alliance from Russia to Ukraine. As the war continues on the ground, there's no let-up either on the diplomatic front.
Well, Zelenskyy appeared before the Arab League today in Saudi Arabia. Zelenskyy, the diplomat, thanking those who support his country, and Zelenskyy, the preacher man, if you will, convinced of his moral authority, not shying away from calling out those who ally themselves with Russia. One can only guess what Syrian President Bashar al-Assad must have been thinking. Most Arab League nations have backed UN resolutions condemning Russia's invasion, but unlike the West, they have not imposed any sanctions, and many still maintain close ties to Moscow. Zelenskyy accused some leaders of turning a blind eye to Russian transgressions.
Ukrainians has never chosen the war. Our troops didn't go to other lands. We do not engage in annexations and plunder of other nations' resources. But we will never submit to any foreigners or colonizers. That's why we fight, and I'm sure all your nations will understand this, our main emotion. And I'm also sure all your nations will understand the main call I want to leave here in Jeddah, a noble call to all of you to help protect our people, including Ukrainian Muslim community.
Well, my next guest is Alexander Sherba. He is the former Ukrainian ambassador to Austria. He's also the author of the book Ukraine versus Darkness, a collection of essays based on the 2.5 decades that he spent as a career diplomat and speechwriter for Ukrainian leaders. Ambassador, it's good to have you with us. Good to see you again. What can or what could President Zelenskyy hope to achieve by speaking at the Arab League summit today? I mean, considering that Syrian President Bashar al-Assad was sitting in the audience there listening to it.
Thank you for inviting me. I think this visit was long overdue because this part of the world was always kind of problematic for Ukraine. And we see that Russia right now is trying to mount some wave of support among the nations of what they call Global South. And they try to pose as anti-imperialists, although this war they are conducting is the most imperialist war in the newest history.
Yeah.
Of course, it's weird to see the Syrian president sitting among among other leaders, considering how much blood he has on his hands. But it's their choice. They invited him.
And I'm wondering, what do you make of the offer that has come from the Saudi Crown Prince Salman, who many people also think had something to do with the murder of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi? I mean, he's offered to mediate between Ukraine and Russia.
Look, the problem in this war is not the lack of mediators. There are plenty of those, and the lack in this war, the problem in this war is the lack of goodwill on the part of Russia and the lack of sanity on the part of Putin. Yeah. That's the problem, and of course that's a great thing. There are rumors that the Saudi leader has played already a positive role in exchanges of POWs in this war, and we thank him for that. But I think the key problem is in Moscow.
Let's talk about President Zelenskyy, the traveling man. I mean, if he doesn't show up anywhere else first, he's expected to be at the G7 summit in Japan by Sunday. How important is just the symbolism, the optics of this trip for Zelenskyy?
Well, Zelenskyy is not about symbolism and optics, quite frankly. You would be surprised, but in my experience, he is very much result-oriented man. So when I heard the other day that he would be traveling to Hiroshima, my first reaction was there must be something concrete he would bring back. And when today or yesterday, last night, I heard about the decision about F-16s, I was just confirmed in my expectations. But of course, the optics are important too, and he is a pro in that.
Yeah. Let me ask you about the news with the F-16 Jets. The U.S. is now reportedly willing to train Ukrainian pilots to fly these F-16 fighter jets. What's your reaction to that?
It's extremely important, very, very much imperative to receive these fighter jets as soon as possible, simply because Russians are deploying a new weapon. They think that it will change the course of this war, and this weapon is gliding aviation bombs, so it's like 500 kilograms or 1,000 kilograms of explosives gliding on your head from the Russian fighter jets that are shooting them from the Russian territory from a safe distance. Mm-hmm. If we have something to counter, and that would be F-16, it would be the collapse of all dreams and hopes for the invaders.
Yeah, your defense minister, Alexei Reznikov, says that F-16 jets will be Zelensky's main theme at the G7 summit. Do you believe that Ukraine is getting closer to getting the jets and the number of jets that it wants?
Well, we have seen this film before, right? At first, it's a no-go. Then we might consider it. Then, when maybe one of the sides will supply it, and then it's a go. So we are very much. It seems like we are very much close to this final step. And where else do it this step, if not at the G17 summit? I think it would be perfect.
Ambassador, I heard today a report saying that if the Americans train Ukrainian pilots to fly the F-16s, that they could possibly have the first pilots ready to fly in about 9 weeks, so a little over 2 months. That is very, very ambitious. Are you convinced that your pilots have the wherewithal to make that happen? I mean, that's incredibly fast.
First of all, I'm not sure whether our pilots have not already started the training. Second of all, we have seen how capable our military is. Our pilots are extremely skillful in flying much less comfortable pieces of machinery than modern Western, fighter jets. But they're extremely clever and they're extremely, motivated. So I think also from that point of view, it will go fast. And third of all, quite frankly, in the beginning of this war, there were rumors, lots and lots of rumors about Western pilots who were ready to take Ukrainian citizenship to help us out in missions like that.
Is Ukraine happy with the latest sanctions against Russia that have been announced at the G7?
Well, we are happy that the words Rosatom is being pronounced finally, because Rosatom, that's the main nuclear maintenance and nuclear, hand of Russia in building new nuclear reactors outside of Russia. So it would be a huge blow to, these Russian tentacles. It has spread all over the world, and it has been counting on money flowing through these maintenance of these nuclear stations, nuclear power plants for years and decades. If they are cut off, it would really, really hurt. But all other sanctions are important, of course, too.
Before we let you go, we've been reporting now the last couple of weeks about President Zelenskyy going to one European capital after another. Now, today he was in Saudi Arabia. Now he's headed for Japan. I mean, this is a real diplomatic offensive being carried out by your president. How is that viewed where you are? I mean, is he pressing the flesh the way you expect he should?
He's doing a terrific job. He's doing a terrific job. Even his critics are impressed because, you cannot underestimate this optics and the feeling that Ukrainians get when seeing our president being this warmly embraced by really the leaders of the most important countries of the world. Yeah. And especially compared to the political isolation of Russia that just yesterday was glowing about a treaty with Uganda about non-proliferation of weapons to the space, which sounded a little bit kind of, funny. Yeah. Of course, it gives us this advantage in optics, and I hope not only in optics.
Alexander Sherba, the former Ukrainian ambassador to Austria. Ambassador, as always, we appreciate your time. We appreciate you taking time on a Friday evening to speak with us. Thank you.
Thank you.